SaaS Insiders, today I'm having a conversation with Omar Khatib. He's not only a good founder, but also a really great person to listen to when it comes to advice on how you build your SaaS MVP, how do you come up with the product market fit strategy. We had the conversation that covers a lot of topics, especially if you're just getting started with your SaaS. It's going to be extremely valuable. Just check out this short clip to get a taste of our conversation today.
Look at how you ship the smallest version possible. See how the customers are using it. Then look at where your customers are struggling in your funnel, or they are hacking your tool together to make it work, and then build features around that. A great example that I heard was Justin Khan from Twitch. They started with Justin TV, but then they noticed people not streaming not streaming like them outside in the park and things like that. They started noticing people streaming video games.
I invite you to listen to the whole episode of me having this with Omar right after this sponsorship segment.
This episode is sponsored by the SaaS Insiders Studio. We help SaaS founders build their minimum viable products, MVPs, launch quickly, find a product market fit, and grow from there. SaaS Insiders Studio works with non-technical founders that are on the pre-seed or seed stage to help them execute on their product vision. To learn more, go to my LinkedIn profile that you can find in the description to this episode and shoot me a direct message there. All right, let's jump straight into today's episode. SaaS Insiders, I welcome you to this episode of our show. Today I'm joined by Omar Khatib. He's the founder of JobPixel, and he's got a whole treasure box of interesting things for SaaS and non-technical founders that we're going to discuss here. But not to go too much into that beforehand, Omar, I thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Vlad.
For those who might not know you yet, if you could give maybe 1 or 2 minute introduction of who Omar is, where you're coming from, the background, and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, my name is Omar. I moved to the United States around 10 years ago from Jordan. I went to school here, fell in love with tech, and started working for a couple of companies. Saw that this is a world of innovation here in Silicon Valley, and built a really strong network of founders and technical people around me. So it's extremely exciting to be around those types of people, which eventually led me to the current problem that I'm solving with my company, JobPixel, which is the use of video content on enterprises. We're mainly focusing on the hiring world today, but we are looking to expand our use cases outside of just the HR tech and talent acquisition tech in the future. I love dogs, big dog person, video gamer at heart. I love soccer, currently watching the Champions League. So really excited for my team Real Madrid to win. Yeah. And I recently had a baby with my wife around 9 weeks ago, and we live in the Bay Area.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the baby. That's a huge step. I bet, do you have a dog right now?
I do. So I have two.
So I have a dog, but I don't have a child yet. So it's almost like I'm thinking like I'm almost practicing like having a baby, but like the minimum version, like less commitment. What's your take on this? I'm curious.
I think they're practically the same. The only difference is dogs can like do their own thing, or they can go run around and play on their own and things like that. With babies, for the first 6 months, you're not doing that at all. You have to be with them all the time, or they cry bloody murder. So you have to be with them all the time. But for the most part, it's the same. It's really awesome to see the growth of the baby going from like having their eyes closed to opening their eyes to being able to start responding and like looking around. It's extremely awesome to, just see that progression and how fast it happens too. And, when he was born, he was 9.5 pounds. He's already at 15.5 pounds. So seeing him almost grow by 50% is really crazy, because you can actually see him in his height and his weight. And when you carry him around, also, you build pretty good arm strength because you're carrying a baby all the time. So your biceps are doing pretty well.
Well, yeah. I know they make more sounds than dogs. That's for sure, especially at night. So
it depends on the baby. It depends on the baby. Yeah.
I guess when you're a founder, you can also say like, my baby is growing 20% month over month. Right?
Yeah, basically.
Speaking about SaaS, speaking about growth, I know your SaaS is VC backed.
and you fundraise. You've been to 2 rounds of fundraising. One thing that we talked off the air briefly is that fundraising is not a requirement for SaaS, meaning that it can survive with that. And you said you have some interesting perspective on what do you think you would do with the knowledge you have right now if you go back in time and like do the decisions when you get started on JobPixel. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I look at fundraising as a tool, not a goal. Unfortunately, a lot of founders that I meet, they look at fundraising as the goal. Oh, I'm going to raise X amount for my company, and that's it. And then you ask them, what are you going to do with that? And they don't have an answer to that. Most companies miss that slide in their deck that shows how they're going to be using the money. They just want to raise 5 million or 4 million or 3 million. And it's a means to an end. You have to, build a financial model or a structure to show how you're going to use that cash in order to get to the next milestone. So money is just an accelerant. I always like to say venture capital is like rocket fuel. If you put it in a car, it's going to blow up. But if you put it in a rocket, it will shoot up and actually, hit the stratosphere and get out of the world, essentially, and become a rocket ship. So a lot of founders, I feel like they focus at it as that as a goal.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned is selling your product is like the best type of money ever. You will meet some investors that are extremely engaged, and then you're going to meet investors that don't really, are not around as much. And that happens to almost every founder. So if you're, talking to some angels, that puts smaller checks in. They don't really check on the startup or are not as involved. You'll meet a few of them that are extremely involved and the most helpful people in the world, but be prepared that 70 to 80% of the fundraising that you're going to do, those investors are not going to be with you every step of the way because they have a much bigger portfolio of other companies to worry about and an economy and a life and everything. So don't think that them putting a specific amount of money in is going to basically make them magically be yours and they're going to help you with their connections and everything like that. That's not how it works. So that kind of takes me to the next phase is who do you take money from? Just like you pitch VCs about your startup and everything, have them pitch you as well and ask them, how have you helped other, companies in your portfolio get to the place where they are today? And we're so lucky with our venture partners that we've picked. Some of them were extremely helpful. One of them brought us our first enterprise client. The other one introduced us to a whole nother set of market that we never even thought we would sell into. And then the other one helped us with hiring a lot and strategy and conversations and even, supporting my own mental health in some scenarios because how exhausting the journey is to become a founder. So finding the right funders behind you is really important. But I always look at fundraising as a tool. It's not a requirement and it's not a goal. If you can go sell your product early on, that's the best thing you can do for yourself. That's the best cash you'll ever get. You're going to feel really good about it when you get it. And on top of that, you're not going to be selling any parts of your companies anytime soon.
Well, I can resonate with that. I think the first SaaS venture I've been a partner with, we started by selling something before it was even built to our customer. We made some exclusive offer, but the goal was basically it meant that we have something here, like it's working. We haven't built it yet, we already secured the sale, right? So I do believe that customer funded growth is more natural growth, right, than VC funded.
So here's the thing. I don't think that a VC funding you is a validation of your product or your company, because that VC is not your buyer. They're probably not the buyer that you're going after. If you're a company in marketing tech, for example, you're going after directors of marketing and VPs of marketing. What is the VC going to know about that? Probably not much. They're probably going to find out some stuff during diligence. They're going to reach out to experts and things like that. But the fact that the VC invested in your company does not mean anything. And the venture model is the following. I invest in 100 companies, so 2 of them return my fund. So the VCs in their model basically model out 90% of their startups are going to fail and go to zero, if not more. So why would a lot of founders use that as validation to their startup idea?
Well, I think it also has a certain attachment to an ego and kind of achievement. Like I see a lot of times people are celebrating the rounds, and like this is totally fine. This is a huge deal, but a lot of times they celebrate it almost like, so we won. That's it. Like we're successful right now as a startup.
Right.
But yeah, I also see that we just got the tools to try it out now. So it's just like it's a progress, but we're not there yet. It's just the middle of the journey.
I think that celebrating funding rounds can help in two ways. The first one is for recruitment. If you're trying to recruit better people, announcing your fundraising is really important, especially if you were funded by, some well-known VCs. And then on the other side, partnerships and enterprise clients. A lot of enterprise clients look at what Greylock is investing in or Sequoia is investing in because they're like, oh, that's the next upcoming trend. AI is a great example. For example, with ChatGPT and everything, everybody now is talking about ChatGPT and incorporating that. It's because the entire ecosystem is talking about it. So, and nobody's mentioning the $10 billion that Microsoft has invested in ChatGPT as much, but it's still a part of the story that and how people are actually starting to look at ChatGPT as a potential solution for a lot of the problems that they have. So those are the two reasons that I would support announcing fundraising. But if you're doing it to gloat and show off, it's not the right way.
Oh yeah. We're on the same page here. Celebration is key. Celebration is key for multiple reasons. It's just what I'm saying is sometimes people attach it almost like a success, like we won as a startup. Like it's just the first stage. Now it's time to get the right people into place, attract the customers, and make something out of it.
Yep.
One thing that you've mentioned that one of the key milestones for SaaS startup is not necessarily even building the MVP, but we'll touch it in a second, but more like getting your first customer. What's your take on this? Maybe you can also talk a little bit more about the levels of SaaS. For example, your company is enterprise level, right? So getting in enterprise customers a bit more hands-on, right? Than getting some like small B2B or even B2C customer. So how do you go from 0 to 1, basically?
If I knew the answer to that, I would probably be one of the smartest people in the world. And I don't have the answer to that. So it's a process, not a direct answer. So, and there's a spectrum, right? There's product-led growth companies where they require zero interference from a salesperson or a customer success person to have you be successful on a specific tool. A great example of that is Loom, right? Really easy to use video tool. Maybe what you use right now to edit your podcast, you probably did not use, talk to a salesperson or talk to a customer success person unless like there's something that horribly goes wrong to talk to someone at that company. But so you go PLG. And then I have what I like to call SMB/enterprise, which is kind of in the middle, where there's a little bit of touch points with your team to get them sold, but then they use the tool and then you're done. HubSpot is a great example. You got to talk to a salesperson, but you don't have to engage with them a lot. Rippling is another great example. You buy the product, you reach out to support every now and then, but you don't need them all the time. And then you have all the way on the other side, which is enterprise/service, where you're constantly needing support or customer success and things like that. And that's the pure real enterprise. Think Workday, think applicant tracking systems like the iCIMS and the smart recruiters of the world. Those are products that require constant connection with the team that has sold you the product or the success team there to do that. And I think early on, you got to decide where you want to be. If you're PLG, your product has to be cheap. It cannot be expensive because nobody's going to come in, sign up and pay $1,000 a month, for example, for a single seat. Ain't going to happen. So I always see it as like the sub $99 a month products are in the PLG realm. If you're, a product between $1,000 to $3,000 a month, you probably fall in that middle bucket where there's a little bit of support. Think of HubSpot, for example. I think is an awesome tool. If you're a decently sized startup, you're still paying $1,000, $2,000 a month for HubSpot, but you're not reaching out to their support all the time. Then you go into the last bucket, which is the enterprise/service or big enterprise. And that one is like $5,000 plus, right, a month, or depending on how size your organization is, it can be way, way more than that. And it can be in the tens of thousands, if not even hundreds of thousands a month. And that's talking Workday. We're talking applicant tracking systems. We're talking very custom Salesforce, implementations. Those require constant support and things like that. So I think early on, you got to decide where you are, because once you pick a lane, it's extremely hard for you to change that path, because you almost build like the company's culture and everything to follow that specific goal. The other thing as well is if you stick to enterprise, it's extremely hard for you to go to PLG because your product is already more complicated, because enterprise clients require a lot more needs, integrations, single sign-on, data security, so many things that the enterprise needs that a PLG product probably wouldn't need. And you got to balance all of that out. So figuring that out early is really, really important.
Interesting.
One thing you mentioned of the air, it's that the person needs to hone their skills of selling the product. I think you mentioned that, Omar, that a lot of times you see founders failing at selling the product. They're really good at like building it and figuring out the problem, but when it comes to presenting it in a way that will convert buyers, to come back to my initial question about getting the first customers, what do you think is the problem that you see? And how, as a SaaS insider, if I'm listening to this, how can I avoid making like the biggest mistakes when it comes to selling my SaaS?
So a lot of founders focus on showcasing the features of their product. Look at here, look at my bell and whistle here, and look at what I built here. And I don't blame them, right? It's because they're so excited to showcase the features and everything that they have worked really hard on building with their development team. The problem is the customer doesn't care. So the customer is going to use that feature or tool to get a specific thing done, right? So early on in the conversations, a lot of founders focus on their product and what their vision is. The customer doesn't care. You need to focus on the customer. You got to have the customer speak the most in the call. Asking what their problems are. What's keeping them up at night? What is their boss holding on top of their head? How do you support them into achieving that specific goal or number or metric that they're trying to solve for? Is going to get you that customer way further than any show and tell demonstration that you'll do. I see a lot of founders, almost 99% of founders, hop on calls with customers and then absolutely just show you features. It happens to me a lot. I get outreach. The outreach is great. The product looks good. I'm intrigued. I jump on the demo and then I'm just sitting here basically quiet, watching a person show me a slideshow or a product. It doesn't work.
Well, I mean, I get why they do this. It's because they've built it. It's almost like my baby, right? I've been building this whole time. I think it also comes to, I'm sharing this perspective all the time, that SaaS is a business of selling software, not building it. Meaning that it's good that you can build it, but that's not the end goal. And a lot of times people so much focusing on that one particular thing that they're building. It's like the analogy you gave with gardening, with seeding plants. Like there is a seed, but as a product, but there's so much more you need to do to make it grow. You need the right soil, the right watering, maybe some fertilizer, specific time of the year, like so many things to actually make that grow. But a lot of times founders like, hey, I've got the seed, right? And just like you said about, if we put the seed on the table and tell it to grow, it's not going to happen. So I think it comes from the perspective that a lot of times people are getting trapped into building products, not necessarily selling them.
Correct. I agree. I think there is a world where founders start learning how to sell really well and focusing on the customer problems. Almost every successful founder I've met have mastered the art of selling. You talk to them and they make you sell yourself on their product without them even showing you the product. And I've met people like that and they are so good. Oh man, they're incredible because they don't focus on the tool. They're like, what's your problem? Talk to me. And think of it as like a therapy session. You want someone to get comfortable. You want them to keep talking and talking and talking and talking and telling you everything that you need to know. If you come into the call and you're not letting the customer speak, you don't know anything about that customer to use in your argument to tell them why they should buy your product or service. But if you let them speak, you're going to start learning a lot more about their day-to-day, what's going on, and then you can use all of those points as ways to build an argument to why they should buy your product. And almost most of the time, you're not going to need to even do that argument because they're going to do it for you. Because you've listened to them and then connected your product to their actual true problem or issue that they're dealing with every single day. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's continue.
The other thing that I see a lot is, companies are tired of SaaS. They are so tired. Consolidation is happening. People are trying to get less and less tools. So if you come in and show me another product with a lot of features and everything, it overwhelms me as a buyer. I'm like, okay, I already have something that does this and this and this. So they start comparing you to features instead of the actual benefit that you're getting them on the other side or what the ROI is. And you never want to be in that place. You're going to fall flat every single time. And then most of your demos are just going to be burned leads, basically.
Well, I mean, I totally get that. I'm also using a bunch of SaaS. Like every person that's in tech, they're using a bunch of other products. And the last thing I want is look at the list of 100 features and trying to make sense from it. Like my head is already like is already in pain because of so much things I need to keep in mind. Last thing I want to solve my problems, not add more, right? When it comes to sales, like I can totally resonate, of course. It feels like if you're talking, you have the power, but it's actually the one who's asking questions who's guiding the conversation, right? But we would be speaking for tens of thousands of hours with you trying to explain what sales is. If I'm a SaaS insider, if maybe I do appreciate that this is not my strongest skill set, what do you think is the best way to improve that? Maybe any specific resources, communities, and special speakers, books, anything that personally inspired you and helped you grow in that sense?
I mean, so the first one is I have a really great group of advisors that surround me that are, awesome salespeople. I've worked in business development for a long time and understand the good, the bad, and the ugly in sales. So they give me a lot of information. The other one is a really awesome book called The Challenger Sale. And then the third one is building a playbook for your sales approach, which means setting up a minimum of 10, and honestly, like seriously, like a minimum of 10 actual questions that you need to ask that customer when you're talking to them. If you ask questions, for the most part, you're gonna have them do the selling for you. So ask them a minimum of 10 questions in the call and let them speak. Do not talk, do not demo your product, do not do anything all the way until the end of the call after you get those questions answered. What metrics are you responsible for? What does your day-to-day look like? What keeps you up at night? Everything that has to do with the problem or what they're dealing with and what's bothering them, keep digging on that. If you keep doing that, you're going to have that customer answer you why they need your product without you even needing to do anything. You basically have them reveal all the answers to you that you need in order to get that sale closed.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Great advice. Omar, one thing you mentioned as well when we were speaking about the potential, let's say, things that SaaS insiders might find helpful, you mentioned that ability to partner or integrate with existing products, with existing bigger companies are key for startups in the making, in the beginning. Could you elaborate a bit on that? Maybe some examples of what does that mean and what things I need to pay attention to as a SaaS insider when I'm launching my product to the market?
Absolutely. So for example, let's just say you're using a new prospecting tool to reach out to people on like LinkedIn. If the tool doesn't integrate with your CRM, let's just say HubSpot, your likelihood to buy is going to drop like 90% because it doesn't integrate with HubSpot, which means in your mind, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to have another manual task of me taking those leads that this tool got me and then go and import them into HubSpot, which takes a lot of time. So integrations early on with the target market that you're going after are really important. You got to know what tools they're using in order to sell them on your tool, which is, again, part of discovery. What are you using today and why is it not working? And so you connect your tool to what they're doing today and how it integrates with them. Because you're not, if you think you're a startup that is like, you're getting your first 10 customers and you're going to make that customer leave their incumbent that they have been using for 5 years, you're absolutely dreaming. That's not going to happen. Their boss's boss is not going to let it happen. A lot of people in the organization, like there is a lot of selling that is going to happen behind your back after that demo. The person that you're talking to on that call should become your champion. And that champion is going to go out there. And one of the first questions they're going to ask on their team is, oh, how does it work with our existing tools? It's going to happen every time. I'm using this AI note-taking app right now. I absolutely love it. So instead of me having to, write notes or, type my notes while I'm talking to, the customer on the call, the AI does it for me. It just transcribes it. And then after the call, it sends me, a link and all that. It integrates with HubSpot and pushes it directly into the deal. So I have it in there. So whenever I go in there, I'll have all my notes, everything I've talked about, all the questions, everything is right there, organized for me. That made my life so much easier because it removed hours of work from me during the week. But if it didn't integrate with HubSpot, and then if it wasn't that easy to use, I'm probably not going to use it. You could have given me a transcription tool and then I can add it to my call. And then after that, I have to go to it, get the transcript, copy, paste it, then go to HubSpot, then paste it in, then make sure that it's properly set up. It's a lot of work. But if I do that automatically, I am way more likely to buy it. And I'm even willing to pay more for it because it's integrated.
I agree. I think it also has to do with retention of your users, because one thing is, if you don't provide those integrations, if you don't provide those conveniences, those problems solved, you might be still compelling for them to get started with you. But we're not building, most of the founders, they're not building something so unique it cannot be replicated. They might be building something better for specific audience, or maybe just faster than anyone else. But I think if you're not addressing those small problems, if you're not thinking from start to finish, what's the interaction look like, it's just a matter of time of someone doing the same product and just doing better at this specific thing that you didn't do, like integrations. And people will just churn, they'll just ship like switch boats, right? So I think my goal is, as a SaaS founder, when I'm building something, is how do I make it really easy to get started, but so hard to kind of switch in a way that like it solves so many problems. Like it's not worth for me for all the effort to try to fix it all externally somewhere.
Absolutely. I agree.
I think you mentioned you have a few co-founders with you, right?
Just one. Yeah. My co-founder, Anthony.
Got it. So are you, either any one of you are like software engineers, technical people, or?
Yes. My co-founder used to be a director of engineering at LinkedIn.
Got it. One question I have more from my audience than from myself is, when you are building the MVP, the minimum viable product, what is the philosophy, what's the mindset when it comes to, okay, how do I scope out the MVP? How do I launch it? How do I ship this? Because a lot of times founders, especially non-technical, they have really great idea in their mind. They might even think of the problem, the target audience, how it ties into solution. So they have that in their mind. How do you get that to market as an MVP to validate that hypothesis? How do you make sure that you're not building a viable but not minimal product, something huge that takes 2 years to build, or you're building something so minimum it's not viable, right? So how do you make sure that all 3 letters are in your MVP?
So our situation was a little bit different because my co-founder has had an exit in our industry and has been in the industry for a long time. So it was a lot easier for us to build an MVP, one, because he's an absolutely amazing engineer and he was able to build a really great team around him in the early days. But we also knew what we were building because we knew the problem really well. It wasn't just an idea. We already knew that there was a problem again. And we talked to a lot of clients early on before we built the product to verify that there's a problem there. So our approach is different. I can't give much advice. The only thing is just validate there is a problem. Don't ask the customers for solutions. For God's sake, please don't. Ask them for the problems, list them out, and then it's your job to solve the problem. Don't ask them for, oh, what do you think video would solve that? Or do you think blah, blah, blah tool would solve that? Don't ask that. That's not their job. Their job is to tell you what the problem is. It's your job to solve it well enough. Product market fit is your product solving the problem better than the other alternatives. That's what I like to always say. Yeah.
Do you remember how much time it took you to build your first MVP, like your first version from the beginning?
It took us around 4 to 5 months, I would say.
The question I was asking in more so, when you're building this, how do you know what to include in the first version? Because a lot of times, even if you know the problem, it's still so tempting. Oh, let me add that feature. That will be good. Before I launch it, let me just add that. Oh, also this thing. Before you know, they're 2 years into development. They haven't launched yet, but they're developing because this is going to be huge, and then in 2 years it becomes obsolete. How do you go about understanding this is the version that we're building? We're not going to get into feature creep. We're not going to slow us down. We know exactly what we want to ship. How do you go into this position?
I think discipline is really important. And then, having discipline and understanding that you need to ship the smallest version or the minimum version possible, because you need to verify if this is usable or not. So let's, say I want to build a texting tool. Does the notification really matter? Probably not. All you need to verify is, does this send a text to Vlad's phone or to this person's phone? That's V1, that it works. It was able to do exactly what it was promising to do. Adding features only happens if you're overthinking. Take a step back, look at how you ship the smallest version possible, see how the customers are using it, then look at where your customers are struggling in your funnel, or they are hacking your tool together to make it work, and then build features around that. A great example that I heard was Justin Khan from Twitch. They started with Justin TV. But then they notice people not streaming video game, and it's not video games, sorry, like not streaming like them outside in the park and things like that. They started noticing people streaming video games. And the video games videos had the highest level of views than any other pieces of content that were being streamed. So they're like, oh my God, there's something here. Like people are using it to stream video games. I wonder why. And it's because there was no easy way to do it, right? You can't connect anything to your TV to be able to, I don't know if you remember back in the 2007 and 2006, when people were like streaming their gameplay on YouTube and like show Call of Duty and all those, right? They realized that it's a problem and people were like streaming themselves from there. And they realized that that's the feature set that they should go after, building tools for gamers. And then that's how they actually went from a broad market into a very focused market. So, so, you know, I don't have an answer to it, but ship the minimum, see how people use it, then add features based on that feedback, not before.
SaaS Insiders, for those who are listening, I highly recommend looking for the whole Twitch story because it's really inspiring. It really tells you that you can make a lot of mistakes along the way and still succeed if you're paying attention and if you're working towards. I know Twitch, I'm not sure, but I think it was years since they actually figured out like video games is what they need to be focusing on. I think they were doing a bunch of random stuff before that.
Yeah, it was around three years. Yeah, took them a while.
And I think even founders say like they internally they didn't believe they have a product market fit. They wanted to boast about it because investors and stuff, but inside they understood like this is not sustainable. We don't have product market fit. We don't have something that's growing on its own.
Correct.
That's a really inspiring story. The question, Omar, here is, let's say you could give advice to younger self, someone who's a couple of years earlier in their career, they haven't got the recent experiences with the startup they're currently at. Because a lot of times founders who are listening are in the same boat. So they're not in this journey yet. They're just about to get started. What do you think are the things you would tell a younger self from your experience that you've got with JobPixel as an entrepreneur, as a founder? What are the things you learned that you wish you knew when you got started?
Be a cautious optimist. Don't be too optimistic because things will always disappoint you and take longer than you think. Take care of your mental health. If you're not sleeping and you're working 24/7, you're no good to anybody, even to yourself. And then this is very cliche, but be obsessed with the customer, but not in a way where you're like, oh, answering every email and everything. No, like joining on calls, having conversations with your customers and understanding, be them, be in their shoes. Like you need to know your customers so well that like you can almost imitate them waking up in the morning, going into their computer, doing the specific things that they need to do and seeing the problem that they face every single day. Period, end of story. Like you need to be the customer. That's how you need to get to. And you only get there by having them talk to you and explain to you what they're dealing with every single day. If you keep talking and talking and talking and telling them your product is the thing that will change the world, ain't gonna do shit for you. Sorry, but it's not. You gotta focus on that. Become your customer by learning who they are and understanding everything about their day-to-day. It's like me coming in right now, right? And it's about the feeling and how I'm selling you a Ferrari, for example. Hey, Vlad, it has 800 horsepower. This is how many cc's it is. This is how the components work. This is where the button is. You don't care. You're like, but if I come up to you and be like, Vlad, imagine how you're going to feel in a Ferrari. You're going to be driving down the road. You're going to, get the feel, the air through your hair. You're going to feel good. All of that. That's what sells people. How is this going to make me feel? And what's the ROI? Not where the button is, not what kind of gas the car takes. That happens after, right? It's everything in life. So a lot of people to focus on the features, you're not selling them on the features. You're selling them the outcome. So learning who your customer is and becoming them is going to make your life so much easier when you're selling them the tools. Yeah. Listen more, talk less.
Good. This is good. One thing you loosely mentioned, I want to make sure you emphasize this as well, is you're not only thinking about them in the process that you're interfacing them on, for example, when they're working on this particular task where you help them with, but also what happens before and after that. Just literally, just like you said, like they wake up, they go to the device, what do they do? Because the experience that happens before and after this interaction can also be impacted by you, by the way you introduce them to this problem or how they exit this problem. Like just like an example with this lead generation, right? You get some leads, what happens after that? How they go into CRM, things like that, that you might not think are important, but are actually creating another problem if you don't take care of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to emphasize that because sometimes, well, like when we got through this, it's like it's obvious, but I want to make sure SaaS Insiders also pick it up.
Yep.
If I'm a SaaS Insider, or maybe if I'm a potential investor or just a fellow SaaS founder who wants to connect, maybe exchange value, seek some help or try to provide it, what is the best way to connect with you? We'll be putting links in the description, but just wanted to know what's the best media our audience.
I prefer LinkedIn. I'm available on LinkedIn. I make a lot of videos on LinkedIn. I'm always connecting with people. So please connect with me there. And I'm always happy to chat and meet. Yeah, that's typically where I am.
Awesome. So we'll put the LinkedIn for Omar in the description so you can connect and move forward from there. Omar, what do you think would be the grand vision, the grand idea for our episode? Let's say our listeners could only take away one big idea. Let's say it's the only thing they could take away from this. What do you think that would be in a few sentences?
Learn how to sell. That's it. Yeah.
That's good. That's concise and it was very fast. So I know you need it. Okay, awesome. What would be the best way to conclude the episode? What would be the note you would like it to conclude on?
I mean, I'm just going to reiterate the same points, right? I see it a lot. You're a founder, you're a builder. I'm proud of you. It's a really tough path to take, but you have to go and build other skills outside of just building and being a great thinker. Yeah, chances are you're not Steve Jobs. You know, it's the truth. Everybody wants to be Steve Jobs. Everybody wants to be, those big founders that have changed the world. But people are literally 1 in a billion. It's extremely rare to be those people. You don't just go up on a stage with a device and everyone's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Build it and they will come world is not there. Even Uber was such a great idea. Know how much work they had to put into making that consumer platform? It is an insane amount of level of strategy, execution, the amount of money that they had to spend and everything. So build skills to help you be a better founder. And I think sales in SaaS specifically, B2B SaaS is extremely important. If you don't know how to do it, hire someone that knows how to do it, but you got to learn how to do it because it's really difficult to convince someone to buy your product if you're just shoving features in their face.
Omar Khatib, everyone. Omar, I thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me on the show today.
Of course, Vlad, my pleasure.
SaaS Insiders, make sure to connect with Omar, make sure to check out Job Pixel, and we'll see you in the next episodes.